Greetings to you all, to those who are now joining. Share the live, share the live, share the live, share the live. I am Noble Gavin Matthews Bay, and I'm privileged to come to you once again. To those who are now joining, um, to my Aboriginal brothers and sisters, greetings. To those who are Moors like myself, greetings. Tonight, this evening, it's a very powerful topic, and I want to divulge on it so you can be able to comprehend. I'm talking to those who are Aboriginal, like myself, and I don't want you to be misconceived or misunderstand, because I'm not miseducating you. I'm not misinforming you. I'm talking about the Aboriginal melanated persons like myself who are here on the continent of Almaraco, or that you may call America. Now, let's get into this evening's topic right away so you can get to comprehend the uh, the message that I'm about to bring to you. On the 14th of December 1960, and I'm repeating myself, on the 14th of December 1960, the United Nations, or the United Nations, when I mean the UN as they may call it, but the United Nations, has met and drafted a declaration and passed that declaration by a unanimous vote. And this declaration came after the comprehension of the origination of the State of Israel in 1945 on the land of the Palestinians. And I'm going to get to that as we go down into the discussion. The United Nations has drafted a resolution on the 14th of December 1960. They met to unanimously vote on a draft resolution, which became a declaration. You call it Declaration 1514. On this day, the United Nations met and passed that resolution, which became a declaration. And it says the declaration characterizes foreign rule as a violation of human rights. Let me make it wonderfully clear. The declaration characterized foreign rule as a violation of human rights, affirmed the right to self-determination, like myself, who have affirmed that right to self-determination. So I declared that I'm no longer Guyanese by documentation, and I have declared and liberated myself from a corporation which is called Guyana, which is a foreign rule, because Guyana came about as a form of as a British colonial state. It was first British Guyana, then they had an independent role in which they formed Guyana, but under that Commonwealth of Nations, which is still a colonial establishment. Affirmed the right to self-determination and called for an end to colonial rule. That is what Articles 1514 has now determined, that all the world that is now occupied by the former colonies like Great Britain, France, Germany, Italy, and all these places are now declaring to them that they need to return the lands to the indigenous population. Now, in that saying, why do I bring it up now? What was it? What does it concern Guyana? Guyana came about on the 26th of May 1966 as an independent corporation following a declaration of independence from a colonial power. Now that these colonies that would have colonialized different these colonial powers that has colonialized different places and call them whatever they want to call them, has sat down and realized that before handing powers over to these persons, they would have still have been linked to them based upon either law or constitution, foreign trade, everything. So these former colonial powers that some may want to call them, they are still colonial powers. They're not former. They still exist. A simple example, certain Caribbean countries still assign themselves to the Privy Council because the Privy Council makes certain suggestions and rules, like Jamaica, that still has a hold on that particular countries. Guyana is still part of that Privy Council, but through the Caribbean Court of Justice. Now, it is time to be edified. Why is Guyana still a colony of colonial power? Now, during that process, or before that process of independence, the British government then, what ruled India, call it India, or a colony of British, which is India, had decided on the way forward for Guyana, Suriname, and Trinidad, but especially Guyana. Their intent was to make Guyana a colony of India by populating the plantation or the corporation, which is Guyana, by a majority of people of East Indian descent. Now, in that so making, when the intent was to make sure that Guyana become politicized or would have gained independence from the British Crown, they would have become a democratic state. And to become a democratic state, they would have had to involve themselves in electoral process. So the indigenous persons of the land would not have been involved in that electoral process because according to democracy, the majority rules. So they overpopulated the place. The people of East Indian descent that came from Hindustan, or Hindus as I may say, and being overpopulated, they make now the indigenous section of the corporation of Guyana become a marginalized place for them because the majority rules. Fast forward to today. Look at what that decision that would have been made since 1838. They have started importing East Indians into the the corporation of Guyana really belongs to them anyhow. Not the land, the corporation, the plantation. Because as long as it carries a boundary, it's a property, it's a corporate entity. It's not the land of the Americas, as to may say, or Guyana, which is the name of the land. As a matter of fact, which is the name of the land of the people of the Golden Age, which is Aboriginal like myself, indigenous and melanated. So what happened over the years, they would have made sure enough resources would have been implemented into the communities of such people or such persons. So the resource to do corporate business, a corporate infrastructure is not in the hand of the indigenous. And when I say indigenous, please don't misinterpret me. I don't mean Amerindians. Amerindians have a date of entry. They are the Mongolians. They came across the Bering Strait, which now in school they teach them the ice bridge. So they're not indigenous. When they came here, they met a people. Like how Christopher Columbus came here and met the original indigenous people, as he described to them in his book, which was made known by his son, who talked about the original Arawaks, the Arawaks that he would have seen and described. The Arawaks who were the people of the Golden Age, which you call Guyana, right? And the spears were tipped as with the golden arrow head. That's why the flag of Guyana is the golden arrow head. And they don't teach you these things in school because you got to investigate. So, let's get back to the conversation. So fast forward to today. Look at what is happening. I had an Indian brother who and I were discussing this issue last evening. And he said to me, look, I kind of comprehend what you're saying. I kind of comprehend that we have an upper hand over you, the blacks, or you, the African community of Guyana. But that doesn't mean that I would sympathize with you, but I wouldn't want to give up what he thinks that, his parents has worked so hard to build. And I said, fine. I don't have a problem with that. But this is my problem. When you monopolize every major business aspect, every economic business aspect in the corporation of Guyana, and leave no space for others to compete fairly with you, that is oppression. That is racism. That is classism. Because you're trying to tell me it is only the East Indian population are the only good people to doing business within the corporation of Guyana, and those who are of the Aboriginal origin, or you may call black, are not good. Or you're trying to tell me that those of the East Indian origin are only those who are able to do multi-billion-dollar contractual business than those are of the Aboriginal descent or African origin, which only got a few couple crumbs off the table, like a couple $1 million. They can't, like, some of them can't go past 100 million in contractual arrangement. So I'm saying to you now, the monopolization of the economic market within the corporation of Guyana is one of the major aspects that a resistance must be created to resist such attitude, because it's classism. Whether you twist it or turn it, it is classism. And believe you me, they will spend their monies to make sure that you cannot and you will not survive their pushback for you to remain what you are and not to involve yourself within the economic basis of Guyana. Your education standard, what they're doing, they take a page out of the colonial book or the book of colonization by the ex-slave masters, or the book of, you call it the book of Willie Lynch. And they're applying it now. They're applying the they are applying the same destructive element of classism, of oppression, of you call it now Indian privilege. Because you go to the US, it's the same thing. The Caucasians are going to tell you, well, look, my father, yes, he involved in slavery, this, that, but at the end of the day, that was my father. Now is no, but they still enjoy what you call white privilege. So in the Corporation of Guyana, it is the same thing. Now you check it, look and see what's happening. The Indian businessmen has this upper class above those that are of the Aboriginal origin. And they're going to make sure that their offspring still enjoy that privilege. And you're going to be oppressed because eventually now you cannot enjoy such privilege. And here why they keep enjoying such privilege. You see, now they're going to say that they can claim identity because they have their culture, they have their religion, they have their language, which is Hindu or Hindi. Okay? If you turn to the ones who are Muslim, they can tell you the same thing. They have their culture, they have their religion, and they have their language, which is Arabic. Now, fast forward. Now, look at you now to the Aboriginal man or the black man. You don't have your culture. You don't have your language. You don't have your identity. You have nothing. How can you claim ancestral lineage to the land in which you came from, which you do not know? If I ask you, who are you? You first thing you're going to say, oh, I'm a black man, or I'm an African. That's the first misnomer. The second misnomer, we're going to ask you about your culture, and then you're going to say that you're a Christian, and then they're going to laugh at you because they know that you're adopting the European culture. That's not your culture. They know that the European God or the Caucasian man, which is Jesus Christo, which is Christ, and his culture, which is Christianity, it's an illusion. Even to those who live in the land of Israel, doesn't even believe that Christ came because they know it's a made-up thing. It's an illusion that you live by. So you living the European culture, which they got rid of since the early 1700s. And then it is brought onto you, and then you adopt it, and then you multiply it. And then it is greater beyond you because you have now adopted it, becomes part of you. So you do. So now they're going to say that, well, look, you cannot claim ancestral lineage because you don't know who you are or where you're from. And then they do you whatever they want to do you. Then they're going to say, well, look, we have to create laws to put you in order because you cannot say who you are. We have to create laws to keep you in check because you're claiming European culture, but you're not from Europe. So you're either half crazy or half mad. So I have to keep constant checking you. I have to constantly look over you. Remember now they can claim all these things. This is why within the Corporation of Guyana, you have Anil Nandalal, who's blatantly telling you in front of your face that he has a right to take your lands. The laws of Guyana prohibit him the right. But here was the problem. What you don't know, that Articles 15, 14 of the United Nations Declaration is what protects you. But it could only protect you if you know who you really are. You see what it says, and I'm going to read it back again. It says, the Declaration granting independence of two colonial countries and peoples were adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on the 14th of December, 1960. Right? And in that declaration, it basically say the declaration characterized foreign rule as a violation. That is what they're doing in the Corporation of Guyana. You have foreign rule, which are peoples from the continent of what you call now Southeast Asia or India, and they're applying their culture, which is a foreign rule. and they're applying their strategies, which is the foreign rule, and their strategies of that of a colonial aspect, which is the foreign rule, right? Which is a violation of your rights. You check it, they're violating you every single day. They're chasing you off the rights of your land, your ancestral land, like the people in Mocha, Arcadia. They have, remember they created this law. So they're contradicting themselves. Remember that. They are a foreign rule, they're a foreign occupation. They have no ancestral lineage to this land. So how can they claim land? I'm being serious. I want people to comprehend me. Some people are saying, uh, well, my family is half East Indian and half black. Fine, I don't have a problem with that, but you have to know the truth. And I gotta tell you the truth. You're not living in a peaceful climate. There's no justice being given to you now who call yourself Guyanese. There's no proper claimage to the ancestral land in which you look before your eyes, and they're taking it away from you. So a resistance must have to take place. What is the resistance? The resistance to colonial powers. It's a foreign rule that they're establishing here in the continent of the Americas by a corporate entity, which is Guyana. Why you think when the PPP takes power, they do what they feel like? Because they say, well, the Constitution gives them the right to. And why do they adopt the Constitution? Because they know that you don't know your own culture. They know that you don't know who you are. They know that you claim to be that of a European culture, which is not you. They know that you're predominantly Christians. Why do you think when you see the PPP, the conglomerates are busy talking to these large Christian community like the Seventh Days Adventists, they pump millions of dollars into that organization because they want you to keep on being subdued to Christianity. It's a foreign intervention. It's a foreign culture. It does not belong to you. So the more you don't know yourself, you cannot claim ancestral lineage. You cannot claim indigenous rights because you are not indigenous. Mind you, indigenous means the people to the land and can identify themselves. It doesn't mean Amerindians. So get it straight. That's part of a misinformation and misguidance. Check the word indigenous. It never said Amerindians. Okay? All right. So foreign rule is a violation of human rights. Another thing too, you need to comprehend exactly what they're talking about. Affirm the rights of self-determination and called for an end to colonial rule. Guyanese or Aboriginal man, or the Aboriginal man in general, who are living in the corporation of Guyana, who's identifying themselves as Guyanese, you have to adopt these principles. You have to stand up and call an end to colonial rule and self-determination. It is a fact. Or whatever you see that's going on now with this particular administration that is in the corporation of Guyana will always continue to thrive because they know very well they're adopting the playbook of the colonial master. And once they keep on adopting and they keep on passing laws that are going to disenfranchise you from the economic aspects of the corporation of Guyana, you will always be in this condition as a sub-servitude. And that's who you are, a slave. And they're going to always to keep on entertaining you on this aspect. And we're going to look at the definition of colonialism. What is the UN definition of colonialism? So we don't get, hold on. One. Okay, so we're going to look at what document is called for an end to colonialization. We're going to look at a document now, and then we're going to look at colonialism, right? So hold on. Yes. All done. Right. Right. One document is called for an end of colonialism. In 1960, the General Assembly adopted the Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples, General Assembly Resolution 1514, known also as the Declaration of Decolonization. And decolonization means getting rid of all foreign rule, all foreign education, all foreign cultures from the land of the indigenous people. Okay? And what is the definition of colonialization according to how it is designated? It designates process through which a state acquires or maintains full or partial political control over another sovereign nation. Okay? Or subjugation of a group or entities over others. And that's the definition of colonialization. I just said that, including terms such as economic. Remember, I talked about that just now earlier. The complete control of the economic monopolization of the East Indian community, whether you're being Muslim or Hindu, right? Cultural, that means changing of your cultural this or putting you in a cultural disposition. It means uh, educating your children about a foreign culture, their own culture, or educating your children about another culture, or adopting Christianity, which is not your culture, or adopting Hinduism, which is not your culture, or adopting Islam is being adopting yourself as a Muslim, which is not your culture, because that is not your culture. You're indigenous. Before they came here, you ate a different food. And that is a subjugation process. They carry you through that subjugation process. They got to eat their food. You got to adapt to their culture. You got to celebrate their religion. You got to celebrate their holidays. It's a subjugatory process that you're being drilled through. Or it says here ideological colonialization or colonialism. You're being fed a lie. Ideological colonialism. You're fed someone else's culture, someone else's history. In order to take away what you own, you have to lose your identity. I keep talking about it over and over and over again. And you have to interpret the law in which it was designed for. So they know, the United Nations General Assembly know when they pass that law, that majority of the black people call themselves black, call themselves African, call themselves Negro, which is a status. So it's hard for you to claim indigenous rights because you just want to be called a black man, or you just want to be called an African, or you just want to be called a Negro because you think it resonates with you. But no, it's not. It's a status of declination, to decline you from who you are. So you cannot claim property. You cannot claim rights to the land, not property. So it's taking away what is rightfully yours, your identity, which you could only identify yourself to the land. If you cannot identify yourself to the land, how can you claim identity? A simple example. In order for the process of what is happening in the Middle East with the Israelis and the Palestinians to adopt or to take away Palestinian lands, you have to take you have to You have to subjugate them, put them under military rule, and over a period of time, you unalive them, like how you this unaliving going on, over 40,000 of them. But if you check history itself, it doesn't even belong to them because they were occupiers just like the Israelis. The original Palestinians look like you, look like me, because they came as invaders and they took away your culture, they took away who you are, and have you praising and worshiping something else. You cannot identify yourself. So you find this now keeps going on, and then they create laws and they want you to object, they want you to obey these laws. And if you can't obey these laws, you become a criminal because you don't know who you are. But if you can stand up and declare who you are and say who you are, these things would not happen. So those who are claiming themselves to be Guyanese, so-called Guyanese, you're registered in the system, it's harder for you to claim ancestral rights. You're going to just sit down there and see these people come out of nowhere. They ain't look like you, friend. They have a date of entry. They came here and they started coming here in 1838. They start coming here in 1838. They have no ancestral lineage or no claim, and suddenly they have prescriptive rights over the land that you are living on because you cannot identify yourself of who you are. And the codes give them the right because they can identify themselves. They can say that they're Hindu, they're practicing Hindu culture, they've been practicing a Hindu self-determination on this piece of land for over 15 years. And you who are challenging them, go to the court and the judge will look at you and say, well, you've been practicing what? Christian. Well, then you don't really belong to the land because the indigenous people of the land never practiced Christianity. Christianity is not their culture. The courts know that Christianity is European. So when you claiming that you're a Christian woman or man and you're going down on your knees and you're praying and you're asking God to deliver you out of this process because all these things are being taken away from you, is because you fail to identify who you are. You cannot say you are European. You cannot say that you're Christian because they know it's a Caucasian culture and it's a myth. And they know this very well. The laws know this. The structure of the system knows this. Right? All these things are being, hold on, what is, okay. All these things are being propelled on you to subjugate you, to take away what is rightfully yours. And you need to comprehend it, people. So in other words, for you to come out of this situation, you have to liberate yourself. You have to see yourself as being, you have to create a revolution of liberation. It's a process. You have to stand and declare who you are, like I always do it here on this particular platform. I say, who am I? I know there got some people who want to come and say, well, I can't say it because I frightened I might lose my work. I might lose my job. I might lose my money. People might not want to associate themselves with me. But then, if you keep on doing this and you feed it to your children and your children, by the time next 10, 15 years from now, your children can't claim no rights to the land in which their foreparents come from because they don't know who they are. You can't say you're Guyanese because they know Guyanese is a colony. Guyana is a colony. They know that. On a piece of paper, it is a colony. And now, make it better yet, it's a colony of India. Because that document was tabled in the Indian Parliament, then controlled by the British, in the year 1919, in the same month of December, to make Guyana, Suriname, and Trinidad colonies of India, to have some hold on the Caribbean. And when they do that, everybody is in a status of declaration. There's there's only certain type of information that you're privileged to. You who doesn't even know you yourself are not entitled to no information at all. The information that you are being given is that information of subjugation and nothing more else. Let us be frank. I've been teaching, I've been on this topic over and over and over again. And I've been teaching you this topic. I want to be able to say to you, look, unless you do not know who you are, there's certain things you can't do. You cannot do certain things you can't do at all. You can't claim ancestral lineage. You're going to end up like the people in Mocha. What ancestral lineage you can claim? Who are you really? You're talking about Mocha was bought by slaves. And all these things were being talked upon. But then you got to go past the history of slavery in order to have ancestral lineage, because they're going to tell you, well, you can't claim ancestral lineage because you came here on a ship, bound and enslaved. But here was the problem. They can't find the date in which your ancestors come, but they know you were enslaved. But they can't find the date. None of them could. But you can find a date for every one of them and when they entered on these lands. You know, they celebrate that on the 5th of May. They call it Arrival Day. To all different cultures that came to the Corporation of Guyana, and everybody got a date of arrival except for those who call themselves Africans and blacks. You ain't know which day you arrive, but you celebrating Arrival Day. Every different, I know this is such an insultive situation. Every different ethnic group has a date of entry on these lands of America, or Almaraco, or known as Atlantis, or known as El Dorado, or known as Greater Colombia. It depends on which part you are and which culture or dialect you spoke and how they see it. I mean, come on, let's get serious. If you really want to sit down and have this conversation, this is the conversation. And I told my Indian brother, I said, this is the conversation I want to have with you. And how you gain such privilege, and we can't gain that kind of privilege because we don't have the resources. You're here, you were brought here, your ancestors brought here to do indentured labor, but suddenly we're given resources. You were given a head start, and you continue that head start. You continue that head start of that colonialism, destabilization of another group of people. And it is a status now you've been given as a privilege, and now it's in the laws of the Corporation of Guyana. You check it. Look at it. Take a good look at it. Whenever the other persons is in power, like to say the APNU or PNC, when they're in power in government, they don't enjoy the laws like how when the PPP is in government. You check it. When the PPP is in government, they enjoy the fullness of the law because the law was created to protect them. The colonial masters make sure that they enjoy the privileges of the law. And when you're in power, as the Aboriginal man, you want to call yourself the black man, you have to obey the laws. You have to follow the laws like a T, remember? Well, I wanna make sure that the decisions are made according to the laws, and you want to go and they completely, and the other group of people completely disrespect and disobey the laws. And they don't care how you feel about it. They're going to tell you that the laws protect them, and that's a fact. I can't come here and say something different. That's a fact. They completely disregard the laws, and they continue to subjugate you towards the laws. And if you want to obey, they send the police force. Brothers and sisters, you have to have that revolution. A revolution must be able to come forward. You must revolt against such an action. Articles 15, 14 of the United Nations Declaration gives you that right. It's a colonial power that still controls you. I'm saying that because this is a fact. This is colonialism. This is colonialism. Some people may say, well, then what kind of political party you want us to come and adhere to, but doesn't really obey these particular constitutional laws? It's not a political party, because politics alone is colonialism. Do you know what is democracy? Democracy is a dictatorship. But the only way it doesn't look like a dictatorship is because it's engraved in laws. It's acts, codes, conducts, and statutes. You see what happens with the democracy that you're talking about? Check these countries that practices democracies. Their leaders do all sorts of things, and the laws protect them. But it's a democratic dictatorship. That's a democracy. And then you have full dictatorship, but ignores the democracy, which ignores laws, acts, codes, conducts, and statutes. Ain't got time with them things. So now you either choose. You either choose an authoritarian democracy, which is an authoritarian dictatorship, as I may see it, because they control, they have laws that controls you to obey them, or they have direct dictatorship. That's the fact. So when you say you're looking for people to adjust themselves to a democratic rule, what is democratic? You check the laws that you have lived by all the time. You see it completely takes away your rights. Now, there's another topic that I want to indulge on. There's some major events that have erupted in my life, and getting at the bottom of it may take some time. But I want to say this to those who may be looking. My intentions really was to free my people and continue to free them from the authoritarianism and from the subjugation in which they are under. When I looked at the events that took place in the social media of lately, when someone pretended that they were me, and defending myself, after that there are certain things that I would have seen, I would have observed that is going on around me. But I want to make it absolutely clear to those who are looking. And I said this already, and I'm going to say it again. I'm willing to sacrifice whatever I have to for the revolution or for the cause, even if it may cost my life. The reason why I'm saying so is because there's a whole lot of things. There's a whole lot of things that is on my mind that I want to talk about. But bringing it to life, it takes a process. And there's an obligation that I have to complete in that process. But I want to make it absolutely clear again and again and again. This process takes sacrifice. This revolution and must start take sacrifice. And in those sacrifice, as I say over and over, I'm willing to give a lot. even if it costs my life. I will never stop. I will never yield. It may look like I'm not constantly on the air or on or in this medium or in this platform, bringing to you the information as it is, as it's correct, as possible as it is. But I'm always there. I'm taken up with so many things, but I'm always there. The truth has to be told. The liberation has to start. The revolution needs to start. We need to combine ourselves as a group of people. We need to create a unity among us to liberate ourselves from these oppressive regimes that intend to subjugate you. We need to form ourselves and stand to resist. The resistance starts now. The revolution starts now. We need to stand as a people. Articles 1514 of 1960 gives us that right to say who we are, where we are, and self-determination without due or ill will, without being forced into subjugation by colonialism or by a colonial power. That is what we need to do as a people. And I'm very serious about it. We need to take stock of where we are and how things are being done. Form ourselves into this group, into this movement. We need to resist not only this de facto administration, but we need to resist everything that is subjugating you and me, us, into the state of colonialism. Colonialization or colonialism is to enslave a people. It is to take away their culture. It is to take away their rights. It is to take away their rights to coexist. These people within the Corporation of Guyana that calls themselves the PPP are moving you away from who you are and what you are. They're taking you off your lands. They're taking away your resources. They're a destructive element. They're a cancer that needs to be taken out of you. You're so blindsided by their actions you don't even know. Brothers and sisters, you need to take stock of what is in front of you. The United Nations Declaration of 1960 gives you that right, and I keep repeating it over and over and over again. You can declare who you are. The courts don't have to give you permission to declare or to liberate yourself. You want to liberate yourself without the things that I'm doing, fine. Just don't renew your identification. Don't renew your ID card, passport, birth certificate. Do not renew those things. If 90% of the Guyanese sit down and say, well, look, I'm not renewing these things to claim that I'm Guyanese, well, then who is there for you to govern? No one. You can't claim Guyana as a government because there are no Guyanese. There's nobody. You can't even hold an election because you have to have more than 60% of the population to hold that election. You comprehend where I'm coming from? You see the resistance? You need to start resisting. Start growing your own food. Start being involved in a community service. Start speaking out. Start looking up for your people. Start being that leader. I know what I'm saying to you. because all these things are facts, they are truths that you need to comprehend at the end of the day. The fact that there is a law, there's a declaration, and the declaration says it's a violation. You hear what the declaration says? The declaration characterizes or characterized foreign rule as a violation of human rights. Well, I don't say human rights, I say Aboriginal rights, the rights to the living soul. It's a violation. So, and it's telling you that you need to affirm that rights to self-determination. When are you going to do that? When are you going to have self-determination? Because these boys can't stand up and tell you stupidness when you have self-determination. The police can't arrest you to self-determinize or self-determination. But the minute you say you're Guyanese, you can be arrested, you can be tried, you can be thrown before the courts because you're Guyanese. You don't know who you are. You're a product of the system. You're a product of the plantation, which is called Guyana. You're a citizen, the enslaved. Because if you check the etymology of citizenry, some of you wouldn't want to tell people that you're a Guyanese citizen. You mightn't even want to say citizen was Guyanese. And the fact is that because we don't do our own research, right? We don't do our own research, nor do we want to self-determine certain facts to keep us alive, to keep us in check with certain things. It's harder for you. But I'm going to say this though. I know, personally speaking, I know that someday I might go missing. I know that someday that they would sit and say, well, let's go for him, but I'm not going without a fight. It's relevant, it's evidence. That little call-in session that happened the other night, and the guy mentioning my name tells me that they're not forgetting about me. They're seeing what I'm doing. I'm edifying the nation. I'm edifying my people to stand and to resist colonialism, to stand and resist repression, to stand and to resist subjugation, to revolt, to have a revolution among ourselves, to stand and to clinch our fists and claim our rights, to self-determine, to coexist. But I'm not going without a fight. Definitely sure I'm not going without a fight. And I'm going to make sure that that fight is well fought. But the torch must burn to light the way so my people can have a light of resistance among themselves. This is a fight worth fighting for. Your children's future depends on this fight, brothers and sisters. Your children's future depends on the resistance. Your children's future is waiting on the revolution. Take this fight to them. I know what I'm saying. Take this fight to them. If you got to take it by the books, we take it by the books. If you got to take it by challenging the court and the system and the acts, codes, conducts, and statutes, that we have to do that. got to challenge the colonialism or the colonized system that the PPP is in, is oppressing you, the Aboriginal man, the menelated man. You're now being misinformed and being misguided. But I want to say to you that I'm always happy when I come here and I have these, I call it little discourse, so I can able to enlighten you about the truth. And I want to say to you that I am Noble Gavin Matthews Bay. On this, the Dr. Matthews Bay Unfiltered. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your patience. And I want to say to you, stay safe, be careful, sanitize yourself, and wear a mask. Don't forget the little ones when you take them into public places. Good evening, and Cheerios for now.